Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. If you checked out the last video that we had, if not, make sure you do. But if you checked it out, you know that we saw a bunch of movies this holiday weekend. Friday morning was Green Book, and Friday night, ooh, man, I started the day so strong and ended it in a way I knew it was going to be weak. The movie I went and saw on Friday night, I did not have big expectations for, and it didn't even reach those. This was a rough one, and it doesn't happen too often. So much so that, like, even when there's a movie that is rough, I can find, like, the real good things, and there were so few things to cling on to that were good about this one. So this is going to be a rocky review, if you will. But pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, on Robin Hood. Yes, Otto Bathurst, brings back to the screen, Robin Hood. And the thing that's tough about this one, is it's just not very good. Look, it's one of those, like, oh, here we go, we're going down one of these roads, and I don't think these movies really have too much in the leg department as far as box office draw. I mean, we saw, Guy Ritchie's King Arthur movie just die at the box office, and even though that one was actually fairly entertaining and halfway decent, set up a sequel that we'll never get to see. Robin Hood doesn't do any of that for me, man. This movie just doesn't feel like a Robin Hood movie at all. Until like the end, toward the back third of the movie, we finally started to get into it. I'm like, all right, this is starting to feel like Robin Hood. But for a lot of it, I mean, they really focus on the hood, and I couldn't help but go, they're just trying to do Green Arrow, man. I mean, like, this is like Arrow on CW, from the hood to, like, oh man, people with archers are cool. There's an entire war fought at the beginning of this movie that Robin Hood is involved in, and he's an archer, and apparently everybody in this war just uses arrows, nothing else. It was so strange, and it wasn't necessarily that I disliked the story from the general concept of, like, Robin was actually royalty in some degree, and like he started doing, like, that all played and worked fine, but it just was not very interesting. I just didn't think Otto Bathurst brought a lot. He does bring one unbelievable action sequence with some horse-drawn carriages toward the end of the movie. And there's a couple decent action scenes, but this one was really the one bright spot in the movie is this sequence toward the end of the movie that involves, some of the horse-drawn carriages. Wow. I mean, that was cool, but so much of the movie, you're just like, huh? Why? What? This is Robin Hood? And look, it's one of those things where, like, Taron Egerton, who I just love so much. I mean, Eggsy and Kingsman, I think he's brilliant. He's got so much charm. He's so good on screen. And he's good as Robin Hood, but, like, he couldn't save the movie. The movie just was not very good. Yes, there's some decent action, and I think Egerton does a good job with everything that he's asked to do in the movie because he's good. The thing that shocked me was that his counter, someone I've been a big fan of for a long time, and Jamie Foxx, I just didn't think his Little John worked at all. I just couldn't care less about, like, his story, and his performance was weird. He has this accent at the beginning of the movie that's, like, he's kind of in and out of, and then by the end of the movie, it just doesn't exist at all. I just thought it was a really kind of phoned in performance from Jamie Foxx that I was shocked by. I mean, for a guy who hasn't done too much, anything big recently, not that this movie was going to be big, even if it was fantastic. I think it probably would perform similarly to King Arthur and not do very well at the box office. But add on top that it just didn't really work altogether. I was shocked that Jamie Foxx's performance was so especially with Spawn on the horizon and maybe him trying to reinvigorate his career. This was not a move that helped him. I didn't think it helped him at all. I just didn't think anything he was doing was adding anything, and I was just like, I was confused by his character a lot. And like I said, it's one of these duo movies where, like, Taron Egerton's doing everything he can to try to save this movie, and while it's not working, Jamie Foxx isn't helping him at all. I did like, Eve Hewson, who plays Maid Marian. I thought she was a pretty decent Maid Marian, but again, her story and what it's turned into is just so cliche. Like, every single one of these characters could be a character from another movie that we've seen that's similar to this one. And that's what happens to Eve Hewson's character. Jamie Dornan, who plays this guy Will. I didn't buy into anything that was going on with the characters. There's supposed to be this tension between him and Robin. I wasn't really feeling it. It felt very forced. And then throw Ben Mendelsohn in, another guy I love, and he couldn't be a more stereotypical villain. Like, it's one of these things where, like, I'm worried for Ben Mendelsohn that he's just gonna become this guy in all movies. And it's like you're starting to lose the really good actor because just so uninspired. The character that he's given in The Sheriff of Nottingham. And it's just one of those, like, I just sat there and I'm like, I don't know why any of you guys did this movie. Like, it doesn't look good for anybody. And Ben Mendelsohn, Sheriff of Nottingham, he didn't even feel like he just belonged in this movie or time period. I thought he was out of a Star Wars movie, man. It was one of these, like, taking this concept of, like, that time period and modernizing it. And it was like the wardrobe, I didn't think worked at all, especially for the Sheriff of Nottingham and his folks. I'm like, are you guys just auditioning for a Star Wars movie right now, or what are you doing? It didn't fit right from a look standpoint, which made it odd to watch. And then the delivery, like I said, everything in this movie is just so cliched that, like, by the time you get to the end of it, I was just like, I am so glad that's over. And I was really, really disappointed, right? Because I thought that maybe this would be similar to that King Arthur movie that Guy Ritchie did, where it was like, hey, maybe we'll get some interesting stuff with Robin Hood. I mean, like, the action looked good in the trailers, and the action's okay in the movie. I mean, some of the stuff works, but, like, I didn't need this movie, and I certainly will never go back to it. It just is a really kind of a flick. So, look, if you're in the mood for, like, super cliched action movies, or, this might be your movie, let alone, like, I can't even say, like, it's a cliched Robin Hood movie, because up until, like, the very end of the movie, I didn't even think it felt much like a Robin Hood movie. I mean, Tim Minchin, who plays Friar Tuck, was he a friar at all in the movie? I don't understand. Like, I mean, he is, but, like, just none of it worked. And then by the end of the movie, I was like, oh, okay, well, now I'm a little more interested because this seems like something I'm familiar with. And look, I usually like getting story that we don't know, or, like, taking a different view of, like, oh man, was Robin Hood actually, like, a wealthy person? Like a lord. And I thought that would all be cool. And ultimately, it was just an uninspired attempt to revitalize a property that I don't think anybody was asking for to be revitalized. And unlike, the King Arthur movie, which I did think did some good things and was interesting as far as a take on that legend, this take I didn't think added to the legend, but rather hurt it. I was super, super disappointed with this movie. It unfortunately will end up in, like, one of my worst movies of the year, which kills me because, like I said, I love this cast, and Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx and Ben Mendelsohn and Jamie Dornan, like, just not a good one. I'm sorry. If you enjoyed this movie, please take it away from me, man. Hit those comments below and tell me what was good about this movie, because I really didn't have anything that I liked that much at all. But I'm certainly interested in what you're thinking, man. Are you gonna see this movie? Do you not care? If you saw it, did you like it? Was there anything good to take away from it? Like I said, I just thought a lot of the stories of characters we're familiar with was strange and just not very good. So let me know what you're thinking down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hopefully more than the movie, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, hit the subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. Hey man, every once in a while we gotta see a bad movie, and Robin Hood happens to be one of those. So for the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down, I am the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace.
Oh, hey, you guys are still here. Well, since you are, you might as well check out a different video like this one or this one. And if you haven't yet, would you please hit that subscribe button? See, man. Peace.